Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Padavika Acharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavika Acharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantaraj srimadbhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. I'm going to turn that on. It's a little warm. Okay. So, Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudирayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashtaparesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this On this 22nd day of August 2018 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in the fourth canto entitled The Creation of the Fourth Order. Chapter 4, Sati quits her body. Text number 29. Aho anatmyam madadasya pashyata Prajapatir yasya characharam prajaha Jahavasunyam vimatatmaja sati Manasvini manamabikshnam arhati Aho anatmyam mahadasya pashyata Prajapatir yasya characharam prajaha Jahavasunyam vimatatmaja sati Manasvini manamabikshnam arhati Aho anatmyam mahadasya pashyata Prajapatir yasya characharam prajaha Jahavasunyam vimatatmaja sati Manasvini manamabikshnam arhati Aho anatmyam mahadasya pashyata Prajapatir yasya characharam prajaha Jahavasunyam vimatatmaja sati Manasvini manamabikshnam arhati Aho anatmyam mahadasya pashyata Prajapatir yasya characharam prajaha Jahavasunyam vimatatmaja sati Manasvini manamabikshnam arhati Aho anatmyam mahadasya pashyata Prajapatir yasya characharam prajaha Jahavasunyam vimatatmaja sati Manamabikshnam arhati Aho anatmyam mahadasya pashyata Prajapatir yasya characharam prajaha Jahavasunyam vimatatmaja sati Manasvini manamabikshnam arhati Aho anatmyam mahadasya pashyata Prajapatir yasya characharam prajaha Jahavasunyam vimatatmaja sati Manasvini manamabikshnam arhati. Want to try it? Aho anatmyam mahadasya pashyata Prajapatir yasya characharam prajaha Vimatatmaja Jahavasunyam vimatatmaja sati Arhati, arhati. Manasvini manamabikshnam arhati. Aho, oh, anatmyam, neglect. Mahat, great, asya, of Daksha, pashyata, just see, prajapatehi, of the Prajapati, yasya, of whom, chara acharam, all living entities, prajaha, offspring, jahau, gave up, asun, her body, yet, by whom, vimata, disrespected, atmaja, his own daughter, sati, sati, manasvini, voluntarily, manam, respect, abhikshnam, repeatedly, arhati, deserved. Translation. It was astonishing that Daksha, who was Prajapati, the maintainer of all living entities, was so disrespectful to his own daughter, Sati, who was not only chaste, but was also a great soul, that she gave up her body because of his neglect. Purport. The word anatmya is significant. Atmya means the life of the soul. So this word indicates that although Daksha appeared to be living, actually he was a dead body. Otherwise, how could he neglect Sati, who was his own daughter? It was the duty of Daksha to look after the maintenance and comforts of all living entities, because he was situated as Prajapati, the governor of all living entities. Therefore, how is it that he neglected his own daughter, who was the most exalted and chaste woman, a great soul, and who therefore deserved the most respectful treatment from her father? The death of Sati, because of her being neglected by Daksha, her father, was most astonishing to all the great demigods of the universe. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So, this astonishment, I think, is being expressed by Maitreya to Vidura. I think he's speaking now, describing the aftermath of Sati's self-immolation. And one of the lessons that we can learn from this whole pastime is that when pride takes over, when this false prestige, if you recall, if you read chapter 16, which mostly deals with the qualities of the demons, you'll see that Damba and Mana are very prominent. Mana is pride, Damba is hypocrisy, deceit. And it's so destructive. When this takes over, one acts in such a way against his own best interest, actually. Because it's just like a fire starting. It starts very small, like in a forest somewhere. But then it keeps burning and burning, and before long you have a conflagration. So the same thing is there when one comes under the control of this hubris, this false pride, in which one completely overestimates one's own power and influence and tends to strike out and injure others, either emotionally, mentally, or even physically. And this is how the material world, one of the main reasons the material world is a place of such suffering. It's if you have like leaders like such as Yudhishthira, Parikshit, who are governing the society and making sure everyone is performing their duties and being a perfect Vaishnav, then even the demigods, they pour rain at the right times and the right amount, and the nature also prospers and helps us. But when you have leaders, and Daksha was kind of a leader, they're called the king here, when they become contaminated by this mode of passion and false prestige, it was clear to anyone who knew what was going on that Shiva was such an exalted soul. It wasn't that Daksha didn't understand that. But he allowed his family relationship with Sati and his distorted vision to completely misunderstand who Shiva was and what he was doing, and take it that he had suffered a grievous slight from Shiva's not honoring him. He was already unhappy that Shiva was married to Sati, because he appeared to have no home. He's dressed with the crematorium ashes. His associates are Bhutas and Pretas, So all of this, he misapprehended what the meaning of all that was, which is carefully explained. And so he let this enmity toward Shiva extend to his very own daughter. When he had a chance here to repair the whole relationship, she came without him, without Shiva, and he was doing this big sacrifice. Still, he was so covered and distorted by that mentality that he didn't greet her properly, offended her. And we know the result. She severed her relationship with him by committing suicide. And the aftermath is going to be most horrendous. He's going to lose his life, and many of the priests, it's going to be disastrous when Virabhadra is created by Shiva. I looked ahead. I don't know if you remember. So, now what do we learn from this? Well, as Krishna warns right in the Bhagavad Gita, this material desire is kama, which is the source of all of our problems here. Our envy of Krishna means that the natural love we feel for him turns into desire for sense gratification. We turn away from Krishna. Bhayam dvitiya banaveshadaksad ishadapetasya viparyosmatihi. Or bahir mukha. It's described in the Lord Chaitanya says to Sanatana Goswami. So, when you forget Krishna, and you forget the source of your real happiness, which is pleasing Krishna and engaging in loving exchange with Krishna, then what are you faced with? The material energy. And this becomes your absorption. You become absorbed in this material energy, and you forget all about the source of the energy. And you see it as a field of your enjoyment, of your domination. And the Diyabhinaveshitaksat, Isha Vipari Osmati, and everything becomes upside down, just like it says in the 15th chapter. You see this material world is like the reflection of the spiritual world. And so, as Kuros explains in his prayers, Nityanat Madukeshu Vipari Matiriham, the same word Vipari is there. He's lamenting to the Lord. He's taking the role of a conditioned soul, as they often do, these great souls praying. It says, that which is temporary, anitya, body relationships and possessions, I'm taking to be permanent, because my mentality is reversed. That which is not me, namely the body, I'm taking to be me. And that which are sources of suffering and misery, I'm taking to be sources of pleasure. And in this mentality, Dvandvaramo, I'm trying to enjoy the dualities of this world, and tamovishto, entering more and more into darkness of ignorance. And the worst tragedy of all, I don't recognize you, my Lord, as my master and my source of real happiness. So this is really a nice summary of the material mentality. Completely forget about God, or you think of God in a completely distorted way as an order supplier, and a punisher, And you simply work in this material field, trying to enjoy the dualities of this world. So Daksha, although he's in a very responsible position, he's been given the position of being Prajapati to help populate the universe, he's allowed this material mentality to infect him. And the result is this fire of enmity has grown to the point of between Daksha's followers and Shiva's followers, that it's a huge conflagration, as we'll see in the following verses here. Already Sati has started shown the fire with her self-immolation. And now it's going to even boil over even more. So this is, when you look at the instructions, basic instructions of practicing Krishna consciousness, so much of it has to do with developing character, having to do with just fighting exactly this mood of pride and self-centeredness and aggressiveness and what we call egoistic. What's the first element of knowledge Krishna gives in the 13th chapter? Do you remember? Yeah, amanitvam. It's like amanyan amanadena. Amanatvam, adambitvam. Here we go again with that word damba, you see? Being free from pride, false pride, and deceit. Ahimsa, chantarajvam, non-violence. Chanti, forgiveness. Exactly what we see the opposite of here, you see? Forgiveness. If we experience a slight or something we perceive it as some kind of offense, then as Vaishnavas, rather than hold that as a grudge, we experience forgiveness. We should cultivate that ability to forgive. Otherwise, even in our very lives, we can escalate into animosity and enmity. You know, some devotee we feel is doing this to us, or we're getting slighted, and you can hold that for years. You know, it becomes a constriction on your devotional creeper. It can happen. I've seen it over years. So this daily kind of self-assessment of where we're at, and by practicing the sadhana bhakti, automatically by the association of Krishna and Sankirtan, just think of some of the levels of which Sankirtan, I mean congregational chanting, takes place. Some devotee, you know, stole your maha, or whatever it may be, you know. There's something that you perceive as some enmity. But when you get into a nice long kirtan, you know, that's one of the problems. We don't have really nice long kirtan like we used to have, an hour. Then you're chanting with that devotee. You're seeing, you're glorifying the Lord together. And that growing little seed of animosity could just be blown away and destroyed. This is how the movement goes on year after year, you know, without splitting apart centripetal force. Because leading a life of austerity and trying to live as simply as possible, oftentimes, you know, emotionally that becomes difficult. And if you feel there's some little slight, then that could be escalated more than it would ordinarily be if you have some, you know, your own material resources and shelter that you can take shelter of. So this is a very instructive part of the Bhagavatam, and how one has to, you know, one of the main lessons here is to avoid false pride, take the verse Trinadapi Sunichena very seriously. I often point out, you know, as I remember when I read the 11th canto, and I was surprised with that verse. There's a verse after the Krishna Varnam Trisha Krishnam verse describing Lord Chaitanya as an avatar of this age, where it describes the glories of this Kali Yuga. Kaling sabhajanantyaya guna gyasara bhaginaha. That those who are Aryans, really, you know, grave and culturing spiritual matters, the Aryans, and who are Sarabhagina, can understand the essence of things, they worship this Kali Yuga. Especially this Kali Yuga, because Lord Chaitanya appeared. Kaling sabhajayante, they worship it. Why? Because yatra sankirtane naiva sarvasvarto bilabhyate. Simply by practicing sankirtan, congregational chanting, one can achieve all of one's spiritual goals. Sarva svarta. This svarta, very important word. Now why is that? Well, first of all, because Lord Chaitanya, Krishna came as Lord Chaitanya and gave this easy process of sankirtan. And when it's in this Kali Yuga, you can very easily realize your own disqualifications, the difficulties that we're in, and through Sankirtan, call out to the Lord in complete helplessness. In the mood of Trinadapi Sunichena, more humble than a blade of grass, tolerance is necessary, is it? And understanding, why should I have any false pride, honoring the honorable, not wanting any honor for herself. In other words, it's possible to get that mood. In previous ages, it was more difficult. If you're living for 1,000 years, 10,000 years, and you know there are so many facilities for elaborate worship of the Lord, it's less likely to feel completely bereft of any shelter and desperate, which is the right mood for calling out the Lord. The point is that it's almost like jujitsu, you know, is that being at a disadvantage, or using the energy of the age in this case, to transcend the age. It's the same thing that Narada Muni says. Does not a an element that causes a disease or a difficulty, that same thing can be used for curing a disease. Classic example of yogurt curing some disorder of the bowels if you drink too much milk. It's still milk with a little different formation. It cures it. Or the thorn taking out the thorn. So the bad aspects of the Kali Yuga we can use to our advantage by realizing how desperate a situation we're in and relying on the holy name even more. That's the idea. So the Bhagavatam is instructing us. Now this is not taking place in Kali Yuga. This is way back in Satya Yuga, earlier, Manvantari probably, Manvantara. But the lesson is still the same, you know. These aspects of human nature are there even in great souls like Daksha. Became very proud. Now it's not an accident that he was very expert at what? Procreation. So it's very difficult. That's an energy you have to be very careful if you use it. You know, the energy of sex life to procreate, because you can easily be bewildered by that. So there are so many rules and regulations for marriage and for regulation even within household life, so that we don't let that fire take up, you know, and burn our devotional creep. So if there's no questions or comments on this, I'm going to go on. Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, you should put it on. Turn it on.
All it is that
Yeah, point the mic toward you. Yeah, that's the whole thing.
I was wondering if there's what the crucial differences between the words mana and damba, because sometimes mana is translated as pride, sometimes damba is translated as pride, sometimes one is false prestige, sometimes the other. But in the Bhagavad Gita verse, they come together.
They come right
as
together.
two
There's
separate
a distinction. So mana is the classic, you know, puffed up sense, you know, feeling what we call pride. Damba includes the aspect of deception, which is associated with false pride. In other words, puffing yourself up to something that even you know you don't deserve. There's a certain deceptive nature to it. So the pride aspect is there, but it has that other aspect, which is often emphasized. Huh?
Because mana is sometimes just honor translated, so I guess damba sounds worse.
Yeah, damba is
always
worse.
bad.
Well, damba is the first quality of the demons, even before mana. I mean, that damba mana vadanvita is described. That they're overwhelmed with deceitfulness and false pride. Did you have something else?
Yeah, I have a quick. Anyways, I don't follow these things, but somebody told me that there was some issue, you know, within the Catholic Church, you know, some priests and, you know, sexual abuse and all that. So, you know, we also may have to encounter people asking us questions because we're also in the realm of religion, you know, religious institution. So if someone, you know, comes up to us on books or this, that, whatever, and they say, hey, you know, these guys who did this, whatever they did, they're men of God, you know, they're supposed to be men of God. So what's up with that? How can, you know, why is that happening? Why are they doing that? Or what's the explanation, you know?
Yeah.
So maybe
What
you
do we
could
tell them?
Yeah. Because you're mentioning how about Shiva and Daksha and, you know, uncontrolled anger and all this type of things happening. So this happens within the religious.
There's a wonderful article you made. I don't know if you're familiar with this. This is by Rabindranath Sarup. You read it many years ago. It was in the BTG. And I forget what the title of the article is, but it consists of his visit to a seminary in Philadelphia, which is a training place for priests, you know. And he gave a talk. They were interested, you know. And afterward, he kind of, you know, in a more informal setting, he kind of visited them in their quarters. We call it an ashram. But they would, and he was just, you know, asking them, well, what do you guys do during the day, you know? And it was like, he was shocked. Because like they kick back, they're watching TV, you know, and one guy's saying, oh, you know, I've grit my teeth, if I could just go out and get a beer, you know, or something. In other words, they didn't have, and so at that time what Rabindranath says, if I recall in the article, that he got angry because here you have this Catholic priesthood, especially, the celibacy is very well known. They're supposed to practice it. But they're not given the tools to actually have the spiritual strength to maintain that, which is Krishna consciousness. Why is Krishna called Madana Mohan? It's not an accident, Who is the first of the deities of approach. You learn this, you'll read the first chapter of the Adi Leela. Madana Mohan means he who bewilders Cupid. Or more specifically, he who sublimates your sex desire. If you really focus on and serve, Krishna, beautiful Krishna, he draws your attention and transmutes that. So it's not as powerful. It doesn't overwhelm you and completely take your mind away because you're chanting the holy name. So, on that level, we can explain that. It's very difficult in any religious system if you don't have specifically the name, form, qualities of God to meditate on, who will give you the spiritual strength to refuse that, and even this idea of sublimate, draw that energy toward Him so that you're not troubled so much by it. Now, at the same time, anyone who knows our history, we also had problem with that. So even in the best of situations, if someone is committing offenses, is not careful in the sadhana, then that protection will be weakened or withdrawn, and you'll also find yourself unable to control that lower energy. So it's a very powerful energy, and this sex energy. And but the process of bhakti yoga, especially as taught by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, gives us a means by which one can control it or even sublimate it entirely into the higher. So it's more or less like that. And you can study the latter part of the third chapter, Gita, for very nice instruction on it. So we can share in that way. Yes, Prabhu. Oh, give him the mic.
So going back to the word mana, it's described that Radharani experiences mana as one of her ecstasies, and my understanding was that is anger, defined in that context as anger. So what are the possible definitions of mana then?
Mana is anger, but it's also, these things are a little complicated. It's expressed in a kind of a prideful way. That's why, because anger, Krodha is anger, but Radharani there's no Krodha there. So mana, it's a variety of ecstatic loving exchange with Krishna. So it's that, she becomes angry when she hears some rumor that Krishna met Chandravali or something like that, and she'll express her anger. But there's always that aspect of, kind of pridefulness, so it's kind of mixed up. These words, they do have, different meanings, different associations in different contexts. You have to see the context. So, but but most of the time, when it refers to us and our sadhana, the amanyana manadena, not wanting any honor for oneself, always ready to give honor to others, and the underlying mood is that I'm not proud of what I am, I mean, you read these amazing verses like in the Chaitanya Charitamrita of Krishna's Kaviraj, sometimes speaking about himself, and he really believes it. He's not just pretending. Anyone who chants my name will be condemned. I'm worse than the worm and stool or anything like that, So, I mean, it's just amazing. And Prabhupada showed that sometimes too, absolute astounding humility. So, that's just the opposite of mana. Mana is everywhere. I mean, that's kind of a endemic with any conditioned soul, especially human beings, Even the pauper is proud of his penny, So it's that's why it's enjoined, and why we begin, Nama Om Vishnu Padai, walk into the temple, it's all this bowing down, is like taking the sledgehammer to this mountain of false pride and false ego and chopping away at it. So that we can, always be in a prayerful mood. I mean, if you're chanting constantly, how are you chanting? You're chanting, Krishna to please save you, to please bestow upon you, please protect me from Maya. That famous, I mean, you must have heard it recently in the class, where Prabhupada is praying, ardently before the deity. He's looking in such a way, and the devotee's asking, well, what are you praying for, Prabhupada? I'm praying to Krishna that I don't fall into Maya. The devotee's jaw practically, hit the ground. So, Prabhupada, you're a pure devotee. You can't fall into Maya. That's why, because I'm always praying. So always be in that prayerful mood. Yes, Prabhu. Mike.
That brings up an interesting point that in what the story you just related, that Prabhupada acknowledged freely that he's a pure devotee. And you mentioned the point about Krishnadas Kaviraj saying that he's lower than a worm's stool, and he actually believes it. But you find many statements of Prabhupada where he's like, yeah, you guys are right, I am a pure devotee, and I'm here to save your butts, and you should listen to what I say. And so Prabhupada would freely on many occasions acknowledge that, yeah, I am a pure devotee, guys.
Well, they wouldn't say it in so many ways, but you're right that he would, in his purport, you sometimes read, well, you have to, there's no doubt he's speaking about himself. He's describing, leaving Vrindavan as opposed to, just taking comfortable life. And that you have to take shelter of the pure devotee, and he's referring to himself. So he's doing that because we needed that. We needed to have that assurance, and we needed to, to be reminded, But Prabhupada would never, do that like in a meeting with his godbrother. Sometimes he would meet with his godbrothers, and he would always be very humble and deferential, and glorifying Bhaktisiddhanta like that.
But it does seem with the case of Prabhupada that the Paramahamsas, at least if Krishna wants to remove slightly the Yogamaya covering and reveal to them that they are pure devotees, that the Paramahamsas do, in many cases, if not all cases, actually do understand that they're pure devotees and everybody else is not.
I don't want to speculate, but you may have a point. Okay, it's almost 8:30 now. Yes, go ahead, Balaram.
So Shiva, he was very tolerant, throughout this whole pastime, and then when Sati, self-emulates, and then he, at that point, he explodes. He puts the hair out and makes the demon, or not the demon, the
Virabhadra.
Yeah, Virabhadra. So how do we exactly understand that? Because it was like tolerance, and then he like crossed the line, and then. Because practically speaking, what he did is he said he created a being, Virabhadra, and he said, okay, go kill him. That's pretty much what he did.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you try to do that nowadays, somebody offends a pure devotee, then I go tell someone, hey, go kill him, Then,
well, yeah, it's a different context. And we don't have.
I mean, I'm just saying.
It's. Ultimately. It all turned out okay, right? I mean, Daksha wasn't killed. That body was removed. He came back and he was chastened, right? Even though he had this goat's head, he was chastened. So, Shiva does that. What do you think happens at the end of the universe? I remember reading when I was working on the Bhagavatam 5th canto, and I was working something, the glories of Ananta, I think there's a chapter, a short chapter. And it describes there, I believe it is, or maybe another, but it's about Ananta, that at the end of the time, when universal annihilation is about to take place and the big fire is going to come, then Ananta becomes somewhat angry at all of the living entities, who have not gone back to Godhead. He becomes angry because they haven't taken advantage. And then this fire starts coming out of all of his mouths, and Shiva's involved, and the din drum and everything. In other words, one may ask at that time, okay, imagine that we're living at that time. Hopefully we'll be all nicely ensconced back to Godhead before that happens. But and then, where is God? Where is the mercy? All this rain, it's not stopping raining, and then the fire is getting too hot, he's burning everything, what did we do? This whole thing. So the point is that, but no, the fire keeps coming, and eventually everything is destroyed. Every body is destroyed. Every body is destroyed, but the souls are, So this is Shiva. His anger is justified here, and the result of it is going to be, havoc is being created. In it has a time limit, but it happens, and so it's just part of his pastime. Just like Nrsingadev becomes very angry, and there's all kinds of destruction that takes place there. So that's what happens when there's a gross violation. I mean, everything was reversible. You know what I mean? Sati, if Daksha had just seen the light and just at least welcomed his daughter, it would have been fine. But he was adamant. He was so contaminated. He went, beyond the pale. Even though she came alone and she was ready to, he ignored her. And so Sati did what she did, and that was, evoked. She was transcendental anger. It's not Maya. So that force is sometimes released, and we see even with Prabhupada became very angry, at devotees for doing nonsense, and especially if they left, like one devotee said he's a snake, avoid him at all costs, I won't name that, the space. Huh? We can't, yeah. And that, unless we can drink an ocean of poison, we can't imitate, which we can't do. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.